Jamanetta Queen Asia here, and I'm back with another guest. Tell them what's your name.
Hi, Brandy Azonie.
Yes, so we have Brandy here today for a very interesting topic that I really want to bring awareness to. So Brandy is a transgender female. And I invited her here because I want her to tell us her experience, educate us more, and also just bring awareness to a lot of things within the trans community. Plus, she's black. So, Hey, Brandy, so how long have you been trans?
So I guess forever.
Wow.
I believe you're born trans. I believe that it's a genetic thing, and that doctors have described it as a chromosome imbalance in the brain.
Yes.
So that's something that sort of just happens when you're made.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you feel about that? Because I think that for someone to describe someone as having a mental illness because of their way of living or how they feel is kind of a little bit distasteful to me.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about when doctors label it as being a disability?
Well, I think that they first have to do a little more research before it can be categorized as a disability, because trans people are very able. But I think for people to say that being trans is mental, I think they're ignorant.
Right.
Just point blank, we all have our way of life, we all have our way of thinking, we all have our way of identifying with ourselves. And that's something that we come to terms with as we develop in life.
Right.
So when I was a kid, obviously I didn't know that I was trans. I was just a normal little kid living my normal little kid life. And then as I started to grow up, I started to understand that I was very different.
Wow. So what feelings were you feeling? At what age did you be like, this is what this is?
Yeah, no. I didn't know. I didn't know how to name it.
Right.
I didn't know what the hell was going on, to be honest with you. But I knew that I wasn't a boy.
Okay.
I knew that I could not identify as a boy. And so much so that I remember being in middle school, and the pronouns would just make my flesh crawl, it would irritate me so bad, and it's how do you correct that, because that you're not a cisgender female, right?
Yeah.
You know that, so that would say, okay, I'm not mental because I know that much.
Right.
And then that what you're being sort of categorized as is very uncomfortable for you, but you don't know how to explain it.
Right.
Because there's no information.
Right. What about your family? How do you explain that to your mom, your dad?
Well, luckily, I was very blessed with a very understanding family.
That's beautiful.
So
that is
I'm
beautiful.
very blessed with that. But I feel like parents know, first of all. I don't think that you can be 14 years old and all of a sudden your parents don't understand. You can't say, for me, that was my experience. I can't speak for everyone. But
Absolutely.
from what I have been through, I think everyone around me pretty much already knew.
So did they see it as, okay, well, Brandy's gay?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that was it too. And then, so explaining the difference between not being that to them was kind of complicated, And then I think they just laughed it off he's wearing girls' clothes.
Right, so it's okay, well, Brandy just likes, guys.
Yeah.
Versus it's no, Mom, I feel like a woman.
Yeah.
I feel like a girl.
Well, I don't think it was about, guys, because I started, transitioning very, very young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I feel like they were just okay, okay, this is what you're doing, you're crazy. That's
How did that happen? Did you have to give it approval?
Well, I would take clothes from cousins and stuff, and I would wear them. And that was just like one of, I remember being like at like a school thing, and I had on one of my cousin's tights. They were like lacy tights under my pants with like a shoe on, and then like that kind of got exposed, and they were just like, what's this all about, kind of thing, you know? But I think they just laughed it off as just like me having a bunch of personality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you start the transitioning process? With the hormones, with the body changes?
So I started medically transitioning at the age of 18. I started...
was that a choice for you, or you had to wait till 18 to be able to medically transition?
You know, I had to wait.
Oh.
I couldn't, you know, my parents were, no one would ever sign off on it, you know.
Did you speak to them beforehand about it?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't really do that. I was just like, okay, whatever. And then when I left, I started taking hormones immediately. It was the first thing on my radar. I was like, where are the hormones? Because at that point I had already like read about it and like, found out information about it. So yeah. And then you know what? Like, you know, I feel like I tell people all the time, I'm always transitioning. Still, like, I don't know what I'm gonna look like in 10 years. You know? Who knows? Yeah. It just becomes a thing that you do, and it's there, it's happening.
Are you fully transitioned within your body?
I am fully comfortable within my body.
Okay.
I shall say. I used to be so uncomfortable in my own body that that was mental. Yeah. I think on that part of being trans, I can identify with this probably being a little mental.
So that was the most problematic issue within yourself with being trans.
Yeah, you can't. You know, you're looking at yourself as one thing and you feel another thing, and everyone else is like, well, how you expect me to understand what you're saying when I'm seeing you as this? You know. Right. So.
Right. That is true, because when I read up on a lot of transitioning, for the most part, what I've heard feedback from when reading is that, like, if they don't have hormones, they don't feel themselves. Yeah. Like, it feels like there's someone else, and then it's hard to express like, hey, I'm this person, but other people is seeing you as something else.
It takes a lot of strength too, because honestly, when you're trans, you have to make your own choice. You know, there's really no way of transitioning without coming to terms with it within yourself and saying, you know what, this is what I have to do to be happy.
So when did you feel that, like, I cannot no longer battle with this within myself? Like, let me be comfortable in my skin. Or are you kind of still battling it?
No, I'm comfortable now. Thank God. But, you know, there was a time when I questioned it. You know, I had already started taking hormones. I had already started, like, developing and, like, you know, changing in many different ways. And I started to question it in my own self. I was like, well, what if I do this and, like,
you want to transition
it's
back?
not what I meant. It's not where I want to be, you know, and you know, will I live to regret it? You know what I mean? And it was scary because at the time I was like, how am I going to get a job? Am I going to be able to live a normal life? You know, am I going to have everyday things that everyone else has in life? You know, and that was a struggle for me. So I think I struggled with that. But I was like, you know what? It's either I'm going to do this and be happy and figure the rest out, or I don't want to be a person. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, too. It's like I got to a place when I first started taking hormones, I felt like, okay, either I'm going to do this or I'm going to die. Like, I can't live, you know?
Wow, yes. And a lot of trans people actually go and commit suicide. Like, the rate is extremely high. And for the most part, do you feel like it's society itself or battles within themselves, like what you were going through?
I think it's society.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I don't want to sound so, like, harsh, but I do feel like the way that society is set up with masculinity and femininity and, like, the contrast of the two, there's really no acceptance of a medium. You know, and I feel like even in, like, a cisgendered straight community, You either need to be masculine or you need to be feminine.
Right.
And anything outside of that is kind of like not accepted.
Yeah.
You know, you have to fight for acceptance. You might be cool, you might have a good personality, and you might get through. You might have siblings that are cool. You might be associated with certain things that might get you through. But ultimately, we look at men for masculinity and we look at women for femininity. And anything in between is just odd,
that's not it.
Know?
Right. How do you feel society views trans people as being? Like, in your experience, was everybody that you came into terms with accepting, or did you feel like some people was like, eh?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like now people, they wear a mask today because of the awareness that has sort of like came about in the last few years. But I think that society as a whole is just very uneducated on like what trans means, and you know, and I think the worst thing for me is when you're looked at as if you're not a person or a human being because of like your life. And so that to me is like a blatant sign of discrimination.
Yeah, that is.
And that's it. I think that like as far as society fully accepting trans, I don't think we're there yet.
No.
I don't think we're there yet. No.
I don't think so neither. And I think it's more so, like you said, people are extremely uneducated. Even me watching certain things is like, I didn't know how serious it is up to even the medical, in the medical field. Is like, how do you feel about that? Like, it seemed as if you guys don't get the proper care at all.
I mean, I think it's really sucky because people have died, you know.
Shit.
People have died because they were discriminated against. You know what I mean? I remember I was living in D.C. and there was a case. It's very public now, and I think it really changed the laws in D.C. when it came to like medical stuff. A trans woman was in a car accident, and they could have saved her. The EMS team, the whoever,
paramedics,
they could have saved her. Well, you know, they cut your clothes off and they found out that she was trans and they stopped working on her. And she died. She died. Because she was trans. And she died. And her family sued and like got a huge lawsuit, and it really changed the way the system.
So what are the laws now?
Well, the laws now, well, I know for sure in DC there's like specific trans places, you know, so they have like one of the biggest medical centers in DC is a trans medical center. Okay. And it's a nonprofit, but it's super amazing, and everything you need is there. So that's one of the things that came from that.
So do trans people need different type of medical attention, or is it just like people freak out when they see it's trans?
I think you need you definitely need different medical treatment because you're transitioning. Right. You know, you're taking a synthetic hormone and you're putting it into your body, and you are suppressing one thing. And then with the surgeries and everything, we definitely need a space where we can go and feel comfortable enough to talk about these things. Okay. And we not only need, but we deserve medical people who are passionate and who care about that enough to give us the proper care. Right. You know, not someone that's just going to say, okay, this is my job. Your insurance is paying for this, so I'm going to write you this prescription. Insurance pays
for, do your insurance pay for a lot of your treatment?
Now, with the new laws, my insurance pays for my hormone treatment. Okay. And that's about it. But I think, I mean, I was already sort of like medically transitioned with cosmetic surgery before this sort of law had came into place. But I think now, if you have insurance, they're required to pay for your transition.
Do you have to show some kind of like, I'm really trans or something? Like, what are the qualifications of being able for them to be able to
do it? We go back to it being diagnosed as a mental condition, because you have to go through psychiatrists, and they have to say this person needs to transition because mentally this is where they are. So, I mean, it's definitely categorized in the sense of it being a mental disorder. Yeah.
That being said, is it a situation that if you say the wrong thing, they'll put you in a psych ward or something?
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
I've never heard of that. Now, I mean, trans people are just like everyone else. You know, some of us are crazy and some of us are not, just like regular people.
Right.
I mean, if you're a crazy trans person, then you might end up in a psych ward, just like
Right.
a crazy cis woman or a crazy cis man.
Right.
But no, I think that would be a case of malpractice. I think.
Yeah.
And I think the trans community as a whole would get together and really make some noise.
Right.
And make sure that that didn't happen.
Yeah, because I don't know, the first thing of me thinking about, you know, you going through this whole psych exam, and if you say something wrong, they be like, okay, no, throw her here or throw her there.